Hey, what's up? Jeff Lerner, and today we are looking at what literally, I believe, is a $1 million question, which is, should we go to college? Does college teach us to be poor? In 2019, is college the right choice? And what's the likely outcome from our college experience? You know, as somebody who's just trying to figure it out in the world, is college going to send us on the path to a lifetime of indentured servitude and struggle, or is college going to send us on the path to riches and fortune? Let's talk about it. You know, one of my favorite quotes and something that I can say that I relate to from personal experience is by Mark Twain. He said, "I've never let school interfere with my education." And it's kind of a cheeky quote, but it's actually really true in a lot of ways. And I'm not somebody who's like diehard anti-school, anti-education, I'm definitely not anti-education, but I'm not anti even traditional education. I think there's cases where college and just mainstream education makes a lot of sense. But I do agree that you can't ask school. You have to go into school, whatever decision you make, and we'll talk about whether or not college maybe makes sense or not for certain people. But whatever decision you make, you have to know what you're getting when you go to school. And you can't go into school expecting it to give you things that it's not equipped to give you. You know, college or traditional education, even whether it's, postgraduate or even pre-college, like high school, like it's only set up to teach certain things. And that's all you can ask of it. It's kind of like, being in a relationship with a person who's not emotionally available, and you like want them to love you and you want them to dote on you and you want them to tell you sweet things, and they don't have it to give, right? That's school. You can't ask school to give you things that it never received and it doesn't have to give. And I think that's why Mark Twain said, "I've never let school interfere with my education," because the real stuff, and I say real, what I mean is impact producing, the stuff that's going to really move your life forward, right? It's going to move the ball down the field in your life in terms of the success, the prosperity, the goal achievement, the things that I think generally most people want. They aren't really necessarily things that we can learn in school. But that doesn't mean that we can't learn other things in school that maybe, depending on what you want to do, are really, really important things to know. So, I always tell people, because I get this question a lot about, should I go to college? As since I started putting content on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, I get direct messages from a lot of young people really asking me, like, should I go to college? And obviously, I don't know anybody's situation well enough to be able to give a diagnostic answer that's, specialized to their case. But I generally say that there's two reasons to go to college. One is to acquire specific information that's in a specific path or a specific channel that you want to pursue. So electrical engineering, probably going to need to go to school to learn electrical engineering. Want to be a chemist? Probably going to need to go to school to learn to be a chemist. Want to be a computer scientist? Actually, that one I'm sort of more on the fence about, because that's an industry that doesn't really care so much about where you went to school. They just care what you can do and what you know. And there's a lot of self-taught, really great self-taught programmers. Want to be a musician? I mean, I majored in jazz piano in school, and I can tell you that nobody ever hired me for a gig because of my academic training. All the gigs I landed were because people heard that I could play and they wanted somebody that could play, right? So again, it depends. If there's something specific that you need to learn that is best learned in school, then by all means go to school. And the second reason that school can be important is because there are some pathways that you might want to go down where you just have to have the credential. You basically have to have the box checked, or you have to have the certification or the diploma or the letters next to your name, whatever it is. If you want to be a teacher, for example, like you're going to have to get a degree in education and or at least a teaching certificate in most cases, or you're just not going to be able to get that job, right? So there can be like really specific reasons why school makes sense. But understand, it's just a game you're playing to get the credential or to get to get that specific piece of knowledge. It's not general education. It's not preparing you for life. I actually have another video on YouTube that if you're really interested in understanding more about the origins of schooling, I would encourage you to check out. It's called "What Schools Don't Teach and Why." And it's a longer video. I think it's upwards of 45 minutes, but it goes through a really detailed, pretty exhaustive history of the origin of the Western educational system, and that schools actually evolved out of a essentially almost at least in America, American schools, which sort of became the structural model for most Western education, evolved actually out of it was actually an immigration conflict, and it was kind of a religious conflict. And so you probably know in the United States we're supposed to have separation of church and state, and we're not supposed to be able to formally tell people what to believe and how to worship or how to pray or whatever. But what was happening is back in and I don't remember the dates, I break it all down in the video, but back in the 18th century, I believe it was the 18th century, there were all of these immigrants coming in from Catholic countries. There was a big wave of Irish immigration, Italian immigration, and so all the Protestant, people in the U.S. was primarily like white Anglo-Saxon Protestant founding groups. They were starting to get uncomfortable because of the social change that was coming from all of these Catholics being introduced, and so they actually said, let's start formalizing the educational process and bringing people together into these schoolhouses where we can control the messaging and we can make sure that the teaching is consistent with our values and principles, which was basically, these original schools, they taught right out of the King James Bible, but it was like they couldn't just say this is a religious thing. So it was like, hey, let's start a movement that promises education, access to education for all, right? And let's make it a social cause where the poor and the downtrodden, we got to make sure that everybody gets access to education. And what they really meant was, let's make sure that these Catholic immigrants, that we get their kids into our schools so that we can make sure we can minimize the impact of the Catholic immigration. That was, sad to say, it's kind of like a cynical fact, but it is literally how schools started in this country. So anyways, again, the other video, what schools don't teach and why, is a lot more in depth if you want to hear that story. But I will say this is actually, you might have heard of people going to Catholic school, the parochial school system. Well, that evolved essentially as a compensation for the fact that now all of these Catholic immigrants, their kids were being yanked into these schools that all of a sudden the rule was that your kids have to go to school, and they were being given Protestant education. So they're like, well, forget that. We'll start our own schools. And they started the parochial system. And that's why you have all the, stories and sort of iconic images of the nuns teaching with the, whacking people with the rulers. That system evolved as the Catholics saying, hey, we want our education back, right? So this whole, now we live in a really sort of secularized, modern, almost postmodern world, if you will, where we forget the origins of things, and we've given things new meanings. But at the end of the day, it's not about religion, but it is about control. There is an element of school, and I think anybody who's been through, whether maybe you're in school right now, maybe it's been a while for you like me, where you've gone the Mark Twain route and said, okay, I'm done with school now, I'm going to focus on my education. But you have to, I'm sure you recognize and probably agree with me that there's some element of school that seems to be about making sure that we sort of mold people to function a certain way. Because ultimately we need certain things from people. We need them to function, productively in society, which means fit in, to certain models to grow corporations, to grow industries, to grow the tax base. And I'm not knocking it. I think it's way better that people are, put into industrious, productive channels for themselves than just left to languish on the couch, which is what I think a lot of people would do if they weren't sort of forced to get an education. So I'm not here to in a very conspiracy theory-esque way, talk about how the whole thing is bogus, but I'm just saying you have to see the model for what it is. Then as you get older and you start to be self-determined and it's no longer legally required that you go to school, actually look at the data, look at the statistics, look at the probabilities of outcome and say, okay, if I go to college, which of these paths am I likely to go down? And with the data in mind, I will tell you this. Unless you know exactly what you want to do, and not going to college is an obstacle to not being able to do what you want to do, or it's an obstacle to being able to do what you want to do. In other words, if not going to college is going to prevent you from doing what you want to do, then you should absolutely go to college. But if going to college is this sort of general move that you're making in your life because you've, in an unclear way, got this sense that it's going to move you this direction and not this direction, then I would encourage you to really, really stop and consider. Because here's the facts. Over 50% of college graduates under the age of 25 are either unemployed or underemployed, which means they're actively seeking employment that they cannot obtain with their college degree. Over 50% of college graduates under 25 are actively seeking employment that they're not able to obtain. But 66% of college graduates have student debt that they cannot bankrupt out of. They are legally required to pay off over the course of their lifetime. Crunch those numbers together for a second. Over 50% of college grads under the age of 25 can't get the job that they were hoping to get, or can't get any job that they were hoping to get, or even not hoping to get, but just to pay the bills, even though they got that college degree. And yet 66% of all college grads have student loans that they have to start making payments on. Put that together. So statistically, which of these paths is actually happening in the real world? Now, as somebody who, I have a company, Entre Institute. We train people on how to start their own businesses, how to grow their own businesses if they already have one, how to leverage digital technology, how to start thinking more entrepreneurially, how to become more adaptive and innovative and improvisatory in their life, and just how to level up their awesomeness. It's, even all this YouTube content is all kind of interrelated with that company and our mission. And I deal with a lot of people coming through our doors that are caught in this bind right here. They're caught in that, hey, I have $97,000 in student debt, or I have, a $600 a month student loan payment that I have to make. And right now I'm on the phone with 7 different companies trying to refinance it and figure out a workaround and change my life. And the numbers aren't adding up. I can't get a job, or the job that I have, there's no opportunity to grow. And I'm just saddled, right? I'm saddled with this debt. I'm burdened with it. And so, then they're coming to Entras, and I see that, the upside maybe is start a business or become a freelancer, or develop a trade where I can actually create a higher hourly value for my time. Well, that's because they're caught in this paradigm. And, that's why I wanted to shoot this video, is to say, listen, unless you're absolutely clear on how college is going to move you in a very specific, defined way down the path that you want to go, that you're certain about for your life. Not that you want to try out, or you want to go have this college experience where you try on 8 different things and see which one fits. I'm talking about certainty, confidence that you know where you're going and you have to go through college to get there. Unless that's you, I would really, really give it a second thought, because the economics, they're just not there. And don't take my word for it. Like, literally go online and research the data. I do not believe in this day and age that unless there is an extremely compelling reason why you need a college degree, that the economics bear out the argument for saying you should go get a 4-year degree. It just, I don't see it. It doesn't play out. And I see the casualties of people that are trying to start a business later as a reaction to that situation instead of as an outgrowth of their passion. Like, I love helping people start businesses. I've built my whole life by starting businesses, but it's really cool when it can be done because it's a passion, or it's a drive, or it's an energetically positive thing, not because, I'm in this terrible situation and I need to start a business as a bailout. Like, that's a really weak foundation to be starting a business, is like, I'm screwed. Hopefully this can fix it. Ideally, you get things oriented properly in the beginning, and then you can pursue your life's passions without having these big problems and challenges that you're trying to overcome. So anyway, I think you get my point. Consider college. Think about it long and hard, unless you know exactly why you need it. And if you're committed to having an awesome life, then you probably will like some of my other videos, and browse around my channel, take a look, and subscribe to my channel. Make sure you click the bell so that you get notified whenever I publish new videos, and I will keep bringing you content that is dedicated and committed to helping you have an awesome life. Thanks for your time.